It's our first panel discussion for London Fashion Week, and it's a really exciting show because it's the London College of Fashion's first ever London Fashion Week show. I want to talk to you guys quite a lot about the role that kind of students and our amazing fashion colleges have in terms of the capital, which is very telling because a lot of you are quite involved with young people. You've studied in London. Do you want to introduce yourselves first to kick off?
I'm Fred Butler. I'm an accessories designer and blogger, and actually I guest lecture at London College of Fashion on the creative direction course.
Amazing.
I'm Fannie Schiavoni. I'm a fashion designer and I studied my BA at London College of Fashion.
I'm David Hellqvist. I'm the online editor of Port magazine, and I studied at LCC, which is not LCF but cousin.
Near enough.
Yeah.
I'm Millie McMahon. I'm an assistant editor at ID magazine and beauty editor, and I study at Kingston University.
Tell us about studying at LCF, Fanny. What's it like there?
I think the student is the most creative, amazing part with the colleges in London is that from all over the world, so many creative young people, they want to show themselves and want to do as much as possible at once. Come together, so it's very inspiring just for that part of it.
People often say that the reason that London is such an exciting sort of fashion city is because of all these young designers. You know, it's a bit of a cliche, but it is that kind of idea of it's always new young talent. Do you think that's just because we've got such amazing colleges here like St Martin's and LCF?
Yeah, I think a big part of it. Yeah, definitely.
David, you've covered a lot of shows in London. What do you think makes it, what do you think kind of marks out the people that we see studying and graduating from London to anywhere else?
Well, it's a good question.
Sorry, it's a hard question. Throw it at me.
I don't know, I mean, I suppose the students coming out of the schools represent in many ways, the city, because they're the ones living here, they are the city. And like the shows in London, I mean, it's just a diverse mixture of students, and as you say, they come from all over the world, and because we have quite a few of these top schools, like there's Parsons in New York, and there's like one in Paris, for example, but we have a few of them, which means that there's just more students, and that doesn't mean that the quality is lower. It's still like top quality across the board. And I don't know, I think also, we have schools like, for example, Goldsmiths, where I also went, and it's obviously not a fashion school, but it's a creative arts university, and they all just feed into each other, I think, and you can tell if you look at the shows.
Do you agree with that, Fred, working alongside loads of other sort of young, exciting people?
I think because these colleges have produced incredible people that have made the industry what it is, then that attracts the new generation, and it's a snowball, isn't it? So I think, everyone wants to come for that reason, so it just gets stronger.
I'm interested in this kind of young idea because I think that's something that really marks London out. Sometimes people even use it as a criticism of London, like you go to New York and Paris and Milan to see like the proper fashion. In London you get like the nuts, crazy stuff. And do you guys think that's a positive thing about London, that we're kind of identified so much with that student culture?
Yeah. I think it's such an open-minded city that you're allowed to come. You can get it horribly wrong, make mistakes, and people can still identify strengths within those kind of idiosyncrasies. So I think it's like a melting pot. It's fantastic.
And I think what's interesting as well is, just to sort of bring it closely to the LCF point, is that students are actually given the opportunity, to show as if they're proper brands and proper designers. Like the Central St Martin show is one of the ones that people are so the most excited about, and to see LCF kind of putting themselves on the schedule. Do you guys even think that there are opportunities like that in other countries?
I don't think so. I mean, this is the first time LCF showing, but we've had a St Martin's one for years, and there's two shows of, I don't know how many people showing in St Martin's, but it's 10 here. So if there's 10 in St Martin's, there's 20 new people who have like this catwalk experience, probably the first one, at least on this kind of scale. It's an enormous just platform to showcase the next generation, really.
Do you think we should be seeing that in other places? Because obviously we've just rounded up our New York discussions, and that's one of the things that people say a lot, it feels very commercial, it feels quite predictable. Do you think it would be better if we actually saw more of this kind of support for young people elsewhere?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah?
I think it would make fashion a lot more diverse.
But do you not think there's an element where it contributes to this pace idea where designers pop up for a couple of seasons and then they disappear? Because I think that's something that people often criticise about London.
It could be the one person that's going to be the next Christopher Kane or something is in that show, so you just don't know.
You don't know.
There is so much competition, but there might just be the one person, so that's going to give them their chance, isn't it? So yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that competition element, because I wanted to ask all you guys what you thought about sort of what are the characteristics that a young designer has to have now to be able to actually sort of build a brand when they're out of university. What do you guys think is most important?
I think it just has to have a really strong identity and feel very original. It has to not try to be anything but kind of what the person kind of trying to establish their brand is doing. I mean, if you look back at that initial wave when you had like J.W. Anderson, Katie Erie and Louise Gray like all coming through at once, they were all so different. But I think the reason they all worked and they've gone on to kind of like be as strong as they are is because even though they're quite out there and slightly outrageous, it's stayed the same season to season. It hasn't just been a bold statement and then onto something else. It's the aesthetic has developed very beautifully.
You're right, because the ones that we do talk about still, the ones that sort of succeeded and went on to do great things, they're the ones, like you said, who sort of early on established them, their own design DNA really, and then just keep on working that. And it's tricky because they have to do something. It's obviously even shorter than a normal catwalk because there's 10 of them, so they have a couple of minutes just to make a mark. And
They've done well to get in the show as
well. Exactly, yeah.
That must be terrifying,
Definitely. But they have to find that balance between getting our attention, but also making something which is, plausible and wearable and but enough of a statement at the same time. It's tricky for even established designers, isn't it?
I think we talk a lot about being commercial and having commercial pieces within the collection, but I feel there is a market always for the most outrageous pieces as well, like obviously in a mass market, but I don't think we have to focus that much on being commercial. I think it's like a tired issue that's always coming up.
And that's your one chance, your degree collection.
Exactly.
Before you have to deal with that, you can just go, this is my vision, this is what it is. So that's what's going to be exciting about this show, because we're not under that pressure yet.
I'm glad that you guys mentioned that element of, when you're a student, it is the time that you can do something super, super creative and super different, because I was interested when you were mentioning, people have to kind of stay really true to brand, and there's kind of 2 points here. There's one of them is it's like, when you're a student you can do something really amazing, you can be super creative, you can do something completely nuts and people will be really open to it. But then there's the other angle where, because you're showing when you're a student, you're already having to think about like building a brand. You're having to think what I put out now might dominate the aesthetic of what I put out like for a few seasons. And do you think that's a really big pressure, do you not think? Did you guys feel that when you were studying? I have to already be thinking about building a brand even though I'm still a student.
I was.
I've got two different. So why were you thinking about it?
I was very stressed about. I wanted to get a job, but I didn't want to start my own label, so I was very stressed about projecting a certain image of where I wanted to apply for a job, instead of just doing exactly whatever I wanted. And looking back, I so wished that I just let go and just did something crazy that I really wanted to do. Yeah.
How come you didn't think about it? Do you think it was just because you were having so much fun?
The degree put me off being a fashion designer, which is all I ever wanted to do, because it got stressful. So I was like, actually I want to do art direction. So I just did crazy stuff within installation and film. So
yeah, it is that chance to experiment then and do something exciting. But when was the point that it kicked in where you were like, okay, now I'm going to have to start thinking about, we have a show. Sorry to cut you off. So we've got, as we mentioned, we've got 10 different designers showing. It's not the full set as MA. It's been whittled down to 10 sort of key designers. And thank God the names are on the screen, so we don't have to say them.
And it's in the Royal Opera House. That's exciting, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic day for it.
Yeah.
And it's a mixture of men's and women's as well, which is obviously really great to see. I've actually seen this collection up close, and it is amazing because it's proper raffia, and it's so thick, and to touch it's absolutely amazing. What do you guys, this is kind of a bit of going to put you on the spot, but what do you guys think of the fact that even, you know, at student level, just 10 designers get the chance to show their stuff? You know, it's really cutthroat really early on.
I think, I mean, any show needs to be edited in you know, in terms of looks, and this show needs to be edited in terms of designers. That's half of it, and you know, 10 designers in one show, that's still quite a lot. I mean, I know it's a school with loads of students, but you know, sometimes you go to a BA show and it's like 40 of them, and you know, they're great, but like it's difficult to kind of keep up interest and you know, stay focused. So I think 10, that's spot on.
You don't think there's an element where it's like already when at university, you know, you can, if you miss the show, that's going to be so demoralising for, you know, a young designer. I think
I didn't get to do the pressure for my BA. So
yeah, and
obviously I don't think it really matters.
It really matters. Well, it's interesting because people like Marios weren't in the show at St Martin's and stuff, and it's really easy to forget that, I think, because
yeah, exactly.
I think it's a very, very competitive industry, and kind of if you do make the cut, then that's fantastic, but it's not the be-all and end-all, and it's kind of like a learning curve for every designer.
Yeah, there's so many other channels to put your work out yourself, and it will make you more, actually, I want to show people what I'm doing.
And the things that sometimes knock you back can make you even more determined.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure it's tough at the time, but you know, but definitely that's not the end of the world.
it's interesting actually that you mentioned that friend as well, because the fact that it would make someone think to, you know, maybe explore film or promote themselves online or something, in a way it's quite a positive thing to take outside a show context. So we've got the second design now. This is the menswear.
Menswear for you.
What are you guys thinking of what we've seen so far? So we've seen one women's, which is the opening, and now we're on to a men's look. Well, we were.
There you go.
Okay.
Impressed by how different they both were, and they both felt kind of the skill behind how they've been created.
Very well made.
Yeah.
And this feels very London. This one. This feels.
Yeah, it does.
You write a lot about men's, David. Tell us about this. What do you think? What's this saying about the direction of menswear?
Well, I mean, it's kind of all over the place in a bit, isn't it? But you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, at the same time, you know, they worked hard and long on this. They want to get as much out there as well onto the catwalk. And you know, it's a mishmash of prints, colors, and fabrics as well in every single outfit. But you know, it's a styling issue as well, isn't it? You know, you have the designer and then you have the stylist who helps making it sort of you know, stand out on the catwalk.
I guess what I'm interested in is what's the kind of codes that we're expecting to see from young designers? You know, obviously we've got things like digital print, we've got things like, you know, what are we expecting to see from young people coming out of colleges now?
Well, I think they're really lucky. They've got all the resources to use. When I've been into the Royal College, I haven't been to the MA London College of Fashion, but all the machines and things they have access to, I think the world is, you know, their oyster. They can do incredible things.
Well, this is quite, I mean, this is also very sort of streetwear inspired, which, you know, it's, I don't know, I think it's a sign of the times. This is what people listen to and wear. So in a way, this reflects that, but obviously in kind of, you know, taken further.
I think at the moment as well, hip hop's having a huge influence upon men's fashion. You can really see that.
Do you think it's, obviously we're going to see students, you know, responding to what's already out there, but sometimes I think, you know, everyone talks about the packed schedule in London, everyone talks about the pace and how many designers are there. Do you think it's harder now than ever to do something that is actually really different and really new?
Yeah.
It's so much, you know, the internet and magazines, and you're bombarded every day with so much pictures that,
I interviewed Nadia last week, the designer behind this collection, and saw this collection up close, and it was very beautiful and so well made, and kind of the fabrics that she played around with they're really, really interesting, like a lot of latex and rubbers, like fringing details on different kinds of fabrics.
When I first saw this collection, I, like, not to criticise it, it reminded me of people that, you know, like people like what Simone Roche is doing, you know, that kind of texture and something that you can really covet and that feels a bit sort of handmade, and I think that's nice to see, especially given what we just saw with that men's collection. It's very very digital.
So interesting to see kind of like beautiful knitwear that's kind of fringed with that laser cut kind of latex. Like it's brave.
I think it's quite interesting that they all seem to be design technology. I mean, it says design technology Womenswear, but the fact that, you know, I didn't even know that was like a course or something you could go down. But you know, I mean, that's quite telling as well. I think the fact that schools put so much emphasis on the technology and the fact that it's about you need to do more than just be able to draw these silhouettes, but you need to be able to work with new fabrics and, like, you know, want to get out there and find technology and new ways of making stuff.
Can we talk a little bit in general about the significance that LCF are putting on a catwalk presentation? Do you think it was the right move for them? Would you, or because I was interested, we did kind of touch on that idea of like doing a film, or, you know, there are other channels for students to put their work out. Do you think it's the right move to do a catwalk show?
I think so.
Looks great.
The focus has been so predominantly on like CSM for so many seasons, and for me, like, Westminster has been incredible for the past 2 years and hasn't had the exposure maybe it should have done, and I know less about LCF, so yeah, I think it's important that everybody gets their chance.
But it's tough. There's so many shows, and you know, there's a packed schedule. But, you know, here we are, we're talking about it, we're watching it, and we, you know, wouldn't have done that if they didn't put on this show. So.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, Millie, that you mentioned that kind of like that everyone is a bit obsessed with Central St Martin's, and I think it is because of that. You know, obviously it's an amazing course, and the pedigree of the people that have been on it is incredible. But I think with LCF, you know, there's also been amazing people that have studied there. You know, whether it's like J.W. Anderson or like that. But it kind of ties back into that point of, you know, if you're not on schedule, if you're not showing, it's really hard to get your work out there. You know, even though we all mentioned you can use like the internet, you can use film, but there is still that focus on a catwalk show.
And I think we're just more likely to be taken kind of like a bit more seriously when the graduates are looking to pick up kind of PRs and stuff, saying that they've showed. It's just gives them so much more kind of, so much weight behind it.
Yeah, it brings gravitas, doesn't it?
And I think once you start opening it up, so it's not just CSM anymore, and kind of like the focus is shifting to LCF and Westminster. How about the other universities, you know, that even are outside of London,
Kingston.
because there's talent everywhere. Like some of it doesn't just come straight to London.
This one, it's interesting because it's obviously more tailored and emphasis on suits and coats and so on.
The knitwear in this one is amazing. I don't know if that you can see it going past in the background. It's absolutely amazing.
It's great it all being so different, because sometimes when you go to degree shows, you can see that students have been influencing each other slightly, and you can see certain styles of a garment that they might have referenced from each other, but all of these have been so different, haven't they?
And that was actually a criticism that was made of Central St Martin's last season. You know, people said every single shape was really similar, and I think you're not seeing that at all here. You're seeing a sense that everyone's been very
got their own thing going on.
Yeah.
Did you find that funny when you were studying, that people did start to like really rub off on each other and influence each other, and you all have that collective thing where you kind of wake up and have the same idea because you've all been in the studio for so long?
Probably. You work so close to each other. In the end you think it's your own idea, maybe, I don't know, but it's a lot to do with the tutors as well, like the direction they push you down in. So obviously the tutors have been doing an amazing job with
let them be free.
Oh my god, those shoes are really bad for those girls.
I really enjoy the styling of graduate shows.
It's Kim Howells that's done the styling.
She's done all of them,
yeah.
That's one big job.
I know.
Yeah, she had like 4 assistants or something.
But you're really seeing the personality of each student come across, I think, which is really nice. You know, that I know people tend to be quite critical of the kind of zealous styling, like with the glasses we saw in the last look and those kind of shoes, but actually it's quite nice when you're a student, you know, that you can be a bit more adventurous.
And you can, it really is a piece kind of like of, you know, a personality that's being shown.
I don't mind that. I mean, also I think one of the most important thing about a good show, whether it's a student or, you know, someone else, is just a coherent idea running through the collection, you know, and that's obviously just a styling touch, but it's still it's a story running through the collection, and you know, like either you read the narrative and you get it, or you don't, but at least it's there. I think that's one of the most important things for them to work on.
This is really interesting, this collection, given what you were saying about that technical side. If you look at this, it's just amazing.
Who was this?
This is Minwoo. Really hope I'm saying that right. All of these
it
names
looks
are
like
impossible.
it's dyed neoprene, but I wouldn't even know how you would do that because it's synthetic, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you find that's a sign of a good collection when you can't even work out how it's been done?
Yeah. That's always the ultimate goal. Yeah, definitely.
Or you can clearly tell something is not done by a machine, or you know, something has to be handmade, or it's always exciting.
Are you happy to see a lot of menswear being there?
That's neat. I mean, is it 50-50 almost? I think that's
Yeah.
great. You know, that's the way it should be. I understand why there's always emphasis on womenswear, but London, as we talked about last time, is such a massive menswear city. So the fact that they give equal footing to that,
I think it's so nice to see so much colour as well.
Yeah. It's a shame though in a sense, because I was thinking about this with the menswear element, you know, it is shown as part of the women's ready to wear, and that is, would you like to see having the students present menswear specifically during the men's?
That would be amazing.
That would be the next step.
But I think, this is the first one they've done, so just the fact that they do this, maybe that's the next thing to fight for. But yeah, that would make sense, I think, because at the end of the day, like with the Man Day, it's the wrong press, it's the wrong buyers in town. So
There's some parrots here.
Yeah, it's a parrot print. It's really cool. It's really nice.
This is more sporty. It's got that kind of athletic touch to it, and we haven't seen any in any of the other menswear shows on here. So they've really cornered at least 3 different styles of design.
Because basically, when they were sort of looking to whittle it down to 10, there was a panel that decided. So they got I went on it, and there was also Simon from The Guardian and stuff. And one thing that I actually found really impressive with the students is, I guess if you're watching the show, it looks like they've been picked just because they're really diverse, but it wasn't even anyone that would have been in that, it still would have felt really diverse. We didn't just pick them to make it really seem sort of like there was lots on show. They were just all so incredible and so different, which is such a credit to LCF, because that wasn't a conscious choice, that's just how it sort of worked out.
Are they having a static so we can go and see all the others?
They are doing a presentation as well, so you can see all the work, because there's some amazing stuff that it isn't in the show but is absolutely incredible.
Who was the standout designer for you for the entire thing?
That's really hard. I actually think it was, I can't pronounce the name, which is going to be really hard. I actually think it was Octo Chung, which I thought was really, really, really good. But also I really like what we just saw. I thought that parrot print was really amazing, because I know this sounds a bit, it's just really nice when you see a designer that you can see it going on and selling, and it felt so focused, and it felt like it had such a life sort of beyond being a student. You could see that parrot print in Liberty, you could see everyone wearing it and it being sort of really cool and really covetable. I actually really like, there's a look from, I think it's from this collection, which is there's a navy skirt with a white shirt, which I thought was incredible. I don't know if that's come out yet. It might have been styled differently obviously by Kim, but this was really nice. And this has got lots of latex in it, which felt really relevant and really cool. What would you, Fred and Fannie, if you were advising these guys when they're showing now, the next step for how to take their business forward and how to sort of build a brand or how to keep going, what would you sort of advise for them? Big question, put you on the spotlight.
Figure out what it is that they want to do, but also don't take too long and be too cautious. Just go on and do it. I always tell my assistants that they want to start their own company or their own label, is that don't be too afraid. Just do it and learn as you go, because you're never going to learn everything beforehand anyway. So was sort of what I did. Just jumped straight in it.
This is the look. Sorry that I was talking. I think it's amazing. I think it's so nice. Really beautiful. It's so beautifully made as well. I want to talk a bit about the kind of sponsorship and funding options that are here in London, things like Fashion East and New Gen, because I think that's one thing that's obviously so relevant to students, is that ability to move from being a student and be able to continue to show without having to sort of just finance it yourself. Did you find that kind of really reassuring and really helpful to have those options there?
Yeah.
Because you had new gen funding. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was obviously an amazing thing. It propels you into, and also they have the support, because obviously I came almost straight out of college, and didn't know anything. So they had the support of them to be able to pick up the phone and call and ask them anything really. That's invaluable.
And did you find that it was when you got that funding that was the point where you really started to sort of think about the business side? Because we've talked about this in some of our other discussions about whether branding and building a business should be taught to students, and everyone's kind of been like, no, you can't have like business classes at the St Martin's MA. But then it's quite, you think, when does that point come where someone's like, okay, this is how you make this your life, your career?
I mean, I think it's amazing that Fred is teaching, for example, because obviously then the students can ask her questions, which is like, I would have loved to have that.
Because I guess
I had business on my degree, and I think it has to be relevant, because you would go there and maybe fall asleep if it wasn't anything to do with what was doing what you were interested in. So I think it would be brilliant to have a business, as long as the tutors are really like tuned into what's, if they've come from the right background, and they're keeping you interested and alert, because then you can factor it into what you're doing. I think it was like 20% of my degree, so I think it would be good on all, or an MA.
This is actually a strong question as well, because I like that you can, again, with this you can see the commercial appeal of that. That looks really.
I always like trying to guess what the influences were as well, like when there's things stand out really strong for you.
And I quite like it when you can see with them the kind of designers that they really love, the students, but it still feels like they're doing something new.
Yeah, I like those colours.
Some of the men's students, their outerwear and their tailoring was really, really amazing. Actually, I was really, really so impressed by it, because there is always this element where you expect the student stuff to be a bit rough and ready, but I don't think any of this looks like it's sort of not deserving of being on a catwalk.
Well, I did like the tailoring so early on.
Millie and David, I guess it's more aimed at you, but I want to ask about the relationship that sort of the colleges and students have with the press in London, because I think it is quite a unique thing where people are so open to covering students' work. No one is ever put off and like, oh, we don't want to write about them, we don't want to shoot it because they're a student. Have you always found that when you're working, that you're really encouraged to go and see new?
Yeah, one thing that I find really exciting is kind of so you'll see one designer here, and they're part of a community of friends who are filmmakers, photographers, and doing all sorts of different things. And we have a series online called Generation Next, where we'll kind of look at graduates across the year and then commission them to make their own fashion films for us to host exclusively online. And we encourage them to work with their own filmmakers, their own stylists, so the aesthetic of the video is entirely their own. They're presenting it as they would want to be seen. And I think it's a great opportunity for us as a magazine to have such great content, and it just shows how exciting things are, and how many talented people there are doing things as collectives out there.
And do you find that your readership is really thirsty for that kind of like unfound talent type thing? It's quite a London thing, isn't it? We'll put them on the cover before anyone knows who they are, but
I think they're into it. I mean, I don't really work with it so much now that I'm in Port, but when I was at Days, it's part of Days' DNA to look at it sort of as it is with IT magazine, but to look at these new fresh faces and their stuff. But I think the readers are very much interested, because in a way, it's them. It's either themselves, or it's their mates, or they know, or they went to the same school, or we're talking about the readers themselves in a way, rather than just writing about already established stars or designers. Right? So I think those kind of pieces always do well.
And I think that commercial fashion is increasingly influenced by emerging designers as well, so I think there's that hunger from that aspect as well.
That's really interesting that you say that, actually.
I mean, so many kind of established labels, you'll get so many graduates doing their placements at these places and kind of both feeding off one another. And
there's like a filter up and a filter down.
Definitely.
This collection's really, really amazing. It's
like
Bill and Bear lines up.
Well.
It's so good.
Also, it's important to remember that it actually works as well. I mean, you always hear. I mean, I know several people who's done these shows, and yet they actually get a phone call 2 days later, or there's an email coming through through the school, whatever, and big brands and big designers, they actually look at this and they do look out for the next designer to join their company, so.
It's like when you go to the St. Martin's show, it's packed. All the old designers come back, and they're all sitting on the floor to be able to have the chance to see it. And this looks like this is off schedule, but if you look how many people are there, I think.
Yeah.
I think if you're a designer, like collection after collection, to keep yourself completely inspired by something new and fresh must be so hard. So to see a new talent kind of showcasing something that's never been done for them before is like a great opportunity to source new references.
That raises this really interesting point about London in general, which is I think we're quite unique as well of having a really sort of collaborative spirit. People aren't afraid to work with other designers, they're not afraid to do collaborations, they're not afraid to save and other brands they like. I think there's not that same rivalry I think you see elsewhere, and I think that's kind of come from the fashion schools as well. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, because people work alongside each other.
Designers seem to be friends and really push each other forward. They're celebrating each other. The rivalry is kind of it's kind of irrelevant, because like I say, you go into one community and you'll find 5 other brilliant people and they're all behind one another.
I don't know about the Womenswear. I assume it's the same, but I really noticed that with Menswear. A lot of Menswear designers, it's a community, and they hang out and they're friends and they're mates and they go to the pub together, and they just support and help each other, and I think that's lovely, and that makes it even nicer for us, because in a way we become part of it as well, and then we're all in it together.
I think that something really interesting that's happening now, which is the first time it's ever happened, is you'll find someone like Rihanna cherry picking Ashley Williams and wearing her to a show, and suddenly this graduate designer is worn by one of the most famous women in the world because she's prepared to take that risk. And it's kind of like, so she's bypassing all the avenues that she would have to travel to get to her, because there's just suddenly this amazing opportunity, like Katie Erie with kind of Kanye West and 2 Chainz, and Astrid Anderson now, and Sean Sampson with A$AP Rocky. So those kind of those hip-hop stars sitting on front rows, they're not just there to be snapped, they're actually looking at those clothes because they want to wear them.
People are very cynical about that. We've talked about this in some of our other panels, this kind of the role of celebrity in fashion, but actually I think it is interesting with the young designers, because it isn't this kind of just sit in the front row to look cool. It is this kind of really creative type relationship, and that can turn a young designer's future around. I remember we had Claire Barrow, and she talks about when Rihanna wore some of her stuff, and it is just kind of completely can turn around your fate. I want to just go back, because we just obviously finished the show. What did you guys think?
Yeah.
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 Good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
I think the textiles were really strong. So in terms of getting work off the back of that, I'm sure they can sell some samples to some luxury houses, because I want to go to that static and really look at that stuff. It's very high standard, yeah.
Is that what you were expecting to see from LCF, or are you pleasantly surprised by the quality of the work?
I think from the MA, expecting to see high quality, but it was really, really well made. I was pleasantly.
You impressed, David? What was your standout?
God, I don't know who is who, but there was a few things, a few of them that I really felt like I wanted to look closer at least. I mean, I think that's always a good thing when you're curious, like you were saying, how did they make that, or that I want to find out more about you, but also your collection, and I felt that several times. I mean, I think there was halfway through there were a couple of tailored pieces that I thought was really interesting, and
Right, you Millie, what did you really like? Because you've seen some of it up close.
Yeah, and my favourite one was, is it Kiko, the one with the floral prints?
Yeah.
I just thought that was so amazing. The girl who designed it said she was inspired by an English country garden, because she came to the UK and she'd never really seen and like the gardens that we have here, which is something you probably take for granted a bit. And she was telling me about her favourite flowers and the way that kind of the prints kind of like wove into each other and would kind of like move as they got further down, kind of like trousers and dresses. And she's an illustrator as well as a designer, which I'm always intrigued by. So I thought it was really beautiful.
It's interesting because you mentioned she came and she saw an English country garden, because that's one thing that's great about the colleges as well. We did kind of touch on this at the start, that you get students from coming all over the world and then they take fresh inspiration when they come from London. I think that's something that was really interesting about that show, is to see it's almost like a mishmash of different cultures, different ideas all brought together, and then London kind of gives you the ability to sort of create that. Did you find that quite inspiring when you were studying alongside other designers, because they must have completely different kind of heritages and backgrounds? And
yeah, definitely. I had a lot of Japanese classmates, American, British, I mean all of them, depending, regardless where they were from. Very inspiring, definitely. And also, if you come from a country like Japan to Britain and you bring a little bit with you, and you take a little bit here, and then you have your other classmates, and yeah, definitely.
And do you find it, because I'm interested in how it's quite a positive thing in a sense, because it forces you to think outside of the context of London, which I think is something that, like fashion is so global now, you're not just selling to people in your own country, and there's an element of, having to think about a broader audience. If you look at designers like Mary Katranzu, Roxanne Illenshik, they've really taken off elsewhere, and people need that global look now. That's what I think. So what are you guys excited about for the rest of London? Fred, you must be excited about your own
The
stuff.
whole thing, I need to look at, because I've been immersed in my own bubble. All the tickets have been coming in and I've just put them in an envelope. I need to actually look at emails, because you get loads on email, don't you? And I'm just like, no more. Actually, the thing I love is seeing people on the street, and I've already seen a couple of really amazing looking people, like older people that should be on that blog, Advanced Style. Yesterday I saw two guys who were just head to toe colour. Yeah, that's what I love.
What are you guys looking forward to? What's going to be the highlight?
I'm the same. I haven't had the chance to look at the tickets. Like today, I have the ticket for today, so I'm super excited about Katie said. But otherwise, I haven't either.
Not there yet. Too busy.
Yeah.
Are you going to go see stuff, David, or are you too knackered from the men's?
Yeah, I'm not going to see much, but I suppose in a way, like tonight I think it's St. Martin's, and that's obviously going to be menswear as well, at least parts of it. So I suppose I'm looking forward to that. Another dose of...
You've had a good student day, then, haven't you? How about you, Millie?
I'm always interested to see the Medium Kirchhoff shows. I mean, the clothes as well, but the shows are always incredible, interesting, amazing, and fashionista as well.
Yeah.
They're interesting, aren't they? Because I mean, I've not been to so many of their women's wear shows, but the menswear presentations they do, they're just spot on. I think it would be not many designers can do presentations well. I think because it doesn't really, it's weird, but they just do it amazing. And I wonder what the women's wear would look like if they did that for presentation for that as well. I think it would be.
I think they're just so passionate about so many different things, and they've got such a wealth of knowledge. They just seem to immerse themselves. Their whole world is references. Yeah. So the music, kind of the production.
That's what's good about the shows. They are immersive. Yeah, there's the smell and everything. Yeah. It's like theatre. It's not just being herded into a straight up and down catwalk, is it? There's always a set design with Tony Hornecker.
I'm kind of intimidated by it all. Like when I sit down, it feels inaccessible. It's so diverse and rich, which is, I think it's always good to feel that way.
Yeah, the successful designer is the one that can really invite you into their world and really keep you there and keep you entranced for the period of time, and not on your phone or anything like that, just focusing on the show.
And that goes back to what you guys were saying about sort of advice for young designers, isn't it? It's, it's creating that world and then being really true to your vision, and that's something. It's interesting you mentioned Meadoff in the context, because we've just been talking about LCF, because they've done that really well, stay really clear, and I know they've developed their aesthetic a lot, they're not doing minimalism anymore, but that idea of creating a world and then letting people be a part of it rather than trying to kind of appeal to everyone. It's quite exciting. Should we give LCF a round of applause to wrap things up?